Hello there, and welcome back to the Brightworks. It would appear that there's a significant vested interest in the new air rework based on the video that I put out recently where I very cursory looked at the, very initially looked at the changes that were supposed to be implemented, and I figured it would be a disservice not to cover a match that was actually played with the units in them. So today we're going to be taking a look at a game on Supreme Isthmus that was played with the brand new air rework. Now I believe also this match had the candidate units enabled as well, so we should see those coming out here, but mostly what I want to focus on today is the air rework. So for anybody who missed it, we'll be covering what some of the changes are, but basically the most important one that I want to keep my eyes on for the early game is that T1 fighters can now fire at the ground. So T1 fighters can fire at metal extractors, wind turbines. Those are all targets that I imagine are going to be ripe for the firing. Of course, they can also fire at units too. So if there's a run-by of units, you can always try and pick those off with your fighters. Or if there's some units like, say, maybe pushing on a side that nobody else has units on that you just need to clean up real quick, you can move your fighters on over there. Of course, you can also harass with them. So there's a whole lot to learn here, and that's one of the reasons why I'm pretty excited to take a look at what actually has to go on. I could not find a lobby of my own that had this enabled, so thank you, huge thank you to the feller who submitted this on the replays channel, the Brightworks Discord channel. Link, of course, down below in case you'd like to join up and submit a replay of your own. It's where I do take all replays nowadays. I used to have an email server that I just no longer check very often. You can send them on over there if you'd like, but yeah, I don't look at it very often. Anyways, enough blabbering. Spawning in the southwestern corner and representing the red team, it's going to be Kevin. Kevin spawning as a red Cortex commander right up here on the front line, so I doubt we'll see any airplay out of Kevin here for today. But at the very least, we should see some very strong gameplay. 36 true skill and silver chevrons out on the front lines here of Supreme Isthmus. Spawning all the way on the other side and representing the blue team as a Cortex commander as well, it's going to be Ritual Murder. Going to be playing with those air units. I guess they could not resist. I wouldn't have either if I was in their shoes. And indeed, going to be going into a little bit of Cortex air. So, one of the changes was that the fighters are much more expensive. You can see 95 metal and 2,800 energy. I can't remember the exact values, but I know that it's quite a bit more expensive. So they're a little more of an investment in the early game. You can't pump out nearly as many of them. They're quite a bit more expensive to field, but obviously that's because they're so much more powerful with the ability to shoot down at the ground. It makes them a harassment tool rather than just kind of a lingering defensive tool, right? Which is cool. My thoughts on it are that if you're able to use the units a little bit more aggressively, a little bit more strategically, I think that's probably a good thing overall. I'm not sold yet that the numbers are firm in place and that they're going to be they're going to be well balanced yet, but I am excited to see where that balance does eventually go. Nice little air scout over here, by the way. Ritual Murder moving this Finch over, and you can kind of already see how much slower the units are. As far as I'm aware, basically every air unit got a speed nerf. So that includes the scout points here, and you can see it moves just quite a bit slower. It really does feel like a ship in molasses. It's very, very slow. Another excellent air scout over here. It looks like Village Idiot also with a airplane does scout the commander moving on over there. I wonder if we're gonna find any. Oh, there's anti-air bots. Oh, that's quite nice. Oh, interesting. Okay, so Village Idiot has is the sea lane player, but he's moved a couple of anti-air bots, trashers that is, under the water over here onto this island, hoping to catch a commander. Evlob has absolutely moved the commander over here. Looks like at the very least recognizing that there's probably a threat here with this perfect scout right here by the Finch of Village Idiot, and it indeed decides to drop the commander. Nicely done. Avoiding the crisis right there. There is a bunch of anti-air out. Not going to be possible for Village Idiot to transport a commander over there via transport. Not going to be possible for Avalab to continue that transport. Indeed, you can see GTM already with the fighter out there patrolling, trying to figure out what's going on. Yeah, Trasher's going to be nice for holding this island. I do like that quite a lot. Trasher's very powerful, of course. Early anti-air is going to be overall very important. With the change made to these fighters now, it's going to be basically a necessity that everyone has some sort of anti-air in their base here. Okay, so a couple of fighters have snuck through. Ritual Murder has moved these across the map here. Now the question is, how many shots does it take to kill a metal extractor or a wind turbine here? Paying close attention. 57, so it's going to take 3 shots in order to kill a wind turbine, so that's good to know. Ooh, Commander actually sniped down that fighter right there. That's quite nice. One of the other changes, I'm just covering these as I remember them. There's an extensive list that you should probably take a look at. I don't think they have it updated here. Yeah, that's an old update. Yeah, you're gonna have to look at the official notes. But basically, they made it so that lasers and plasma throwers all do a standardized set of damage to the units. So rather than before, where it was kind of not random per se, but it was not as predictable. Now it's much more standard, and so you can actually depend on, for instance, your commander shooting down these units quite nicely here. Fighters were cleaned up here. Didn't get a tremendous amount of damage. As far as I'm aware, you can't actually target where they're going to fire. So you just have to kind of put them near the things that you want to kill. We do have some fighters moving out towards the ship. Okay. There they go. I mean, it's not an insignificant amount of damage. Like, it is reasonable. There they go. They sniped the constructor ship over here. They also snipe a grunt. That's nice. Looking for whatever pick that they can. So this is cool. Blue team going for 2 air players rather than a tech player. They still, of course, have the regular tech player on the beach over here. So it's not like they're really losing out on anything. And I would be surprised if this doesn't become the new meta very quickly here. It makes a lot of sense. If you're going to have air that's this powerful, you're probably going to want to put way more emphasis on it. That's kind of the biggest backlash that I feel like I've heard from a lot of the pro level players, is essentially that it's going to make air much more aggressive. Like, you're gonna have to outplay and counterplay air a lot more so than you would have to beforehand, before the air rework, which is not official, by the way. You have to toggle it on, you have to enable it in the settings, so it's not the default yet. But I don't know. I think the change is probably good. Anything that allows for more strategic play, right? Allows for units to be used a little more aggressively. Case in point here, as we can see some of these starting to fire away at some of the eco over here, trying desperately. Not going to get anything, though. I think it's the right move. I think the numbers have to be tweaked, and I think gunships seriously need an overhaul. Gunships definitely need to be buffed significantly, because now their role is kind of blurred, right? They kind of are now in a weird gray area where it doesn't really make sense what a gunship is supposed to be if fighters can already shoot at the ground here. Other than that, though, I like the conceptual design change. T1 fighters, man, they look slow here. I keep saying it, but it's so true. The fighters, they just look so abysmally slow. It does make the battles a little more readable, which is nice. But man, does it look a little strange going from the Mach 12 fighters down to Mach 1. Now, I've been focusing very heavily on the fighters here, but I do intend to cast the rest of this game. Looks fairly stock standard on the front lines, although I will say a entirely bot composition here for the red team versus the blue team with a much more heavy vehicle emphasis here. Eventually, that's just going to be a negative trade for the blue team unless the red players manage to trade out phenomenally here. And it's possible, but it's definitely very difficult here. And a lot of these aggravators are already very wounded. More than half of them, or about half of them, are down on orange or red hit points there. Very difficult. Only a matter of time before those units stray a little too far, catch a couple of plasma bullets to the face, and suddenly Spookums has lost way more than he bargained for on the front line. So nicely done with the commander, trying to repair back up as many of these as possible. A resbot or two wouldn't be the end of the world either. Indeed, we do have one here. Oh, got a micro hit. Resbot running to its death, unfortunately. Kevin also holding the front line here. Oh, misses the D-gun. That's unfortunate. Poor little Resbot. The Resbot that couldn't. We have more gunships and bombers patrolling the skies. So bombers also move a whole lot slower, and they do a whole lot more damage. They have way more AoE on their attacks, so they're kind of meant to be a little bit more of a cannon sort of a thing. Not a glass cannon, I suppose, just kind of an immobile cannon. They're very, very slow and very sturdy, but they obviously, that's a negative to them. The slowness is the fact that they can be shot down by anti-air relatively effectively here. Losing a couple of T1 fighters, it's almost like a mindset change that you have to switch over, right? You're not used to losing T1 fighters and griping and groaning about it, but now with the air rework, that actually becomes a significant cost that you have to be aware of. So certainly catching air units is going to be much more important. Nice lightning turrets over here, shutting down all the aggression as well. That being said, a nice little trade for the orange player who did manage to kill a lot of those Wolverines over there. It's going to slow down the push, slow down the build here just a little bit. There's an agitator out on the field already, firing away at whatever it can. It is indeed targeting down the laboratory over here, but I think the medium tanks are going to be more than enough to finish that off. Kevin calls for help in chat. We'll have to see if that comes to fruition. I'm betting he has a tech player. Yeah, indeed, there is a tech player back here, so at the very least, we should see T2 out eventually. We need to get this T2 economy up and running immediately, though. If the T2 doesn't come out on the field, it's going to be a lost cause here for Kevin. As, yeah, the T1 lab has already gone down. The medium tanks have ravaged everything over here. Luckily, there's a flame turret to sort of dissuade some of these units. The only reason that these units pulled back, really, though, was because of the counterattack right here from the pink and orange forces, which are also looking very thin. Yeah, the orange player without very many forces here, Spookums, that is, looking very thin in the front lines. Little incursion of forces, finally some fighters getting some eco damage. Feels very weird to say. Definitely doesn't feel right. Feels like I'm making a mistake, an enunciatory mistake. But no, there they go, popping wind turbines, those T1 fighters. And I wonder if they're going to be able to get anything else. There's no anti-air over here. Get some is thinking about it. He's trying to get a flak turret up in time. Oh, loads of anti-air over here. Oh my goodness, look at all this. I didn't even notice back here, but look at how many wind turbines we've gone for. This is so prone to chain reacting. A single one of these energy converters pops, and suddenly you're going to have yourself in a horrible position. Every single one of these wind turbines is going to go. You got to be so careful about that, Nilius. Luckily, these fighters didn't notice. Otherwise, I think they very greedily would have jumped on top of this. Nice snipes, though. They're picking metal extractors wherever they can here. 4 seems to be kind of a magic number. Kills metal extractors, kills resbots, kills all these different things. Seems like a pretty good number of fighters to send on a little excursion onto the enemy side of the map here. Things to keep in mind as we move forward into this strange and untamed territory. Where are the T2 units? T2 units are nowhere to be found. All of Kevin's laboratories here, or metal extractors rather, were sniped by the rascals that were sent across the map. A whole bunch of ticks going across now too. Bombers coming in to add insult to injury. They're looking to snipe Kevin. Looks like they already tried to bomb him. Not quite gonna get him. They'll take down the light tower, or the light laser tower though. You can see the speed of those bombers is drastically reduced as well. Stormbringer's a little more menacing though. Definitely looking a little bit more menacing than, for instance, than they used to. Right, relative to the Whirlwind, which is the Cortex T1 bomber, the Stormbringer is now actually looking reasonably damaging. Used to look like nothing at all. Gunships will manage to snipe on Spookums right here. The orange player for the red team is going to lose their commander on the front lines right now. HLM pushing in dangerously far as well here. Oh, looks like the orange player is resigned at this point. Spookums calls GG and taps out of the game here. What a messy battle. Bunch of grunts jumping on top of tanks. Not really a positive trade. Oh, there's a pounder in there I didn't see too. Pounder does manage to get some crazy hits against a lot of those grunts, and that is a very efficient trade out for the cyan player here, HLM. Indeed. The orange base now falling under siege. Mindless turrets with no commander to lead them. Oh, there we go. Kevin has decided to take over there. But I don't think there's anything to stop all this. Yeah. There are some hounds coming out from all the way over here. Oh, I see. So, Dying Solar System has not contested the seas on the northern sea, so that's going to be Sony Lopez with a complete naval control. We'll have to see what that advantage leads to here. But for the time being, T2, mixed up all my words right there. For the time being, T2 is only coming out of the hot pink players' laboratories here. Where is the T2 right now? What on earth? Dr. Frog way behind on the eco game right now. Not sure exactly what went wrong in this build order, but T2 is so far delayed. This laboratory should have come up around 6 minutes. The T2 metal extractor should have come up around 7 to 8 minutes. And then T2 unit production should have basically started up immediately. If not, going into a Prude would not be a bad idea, just to improve that energy infrastructure. Oh, I see what we're going for. We're going for one of the new turrets. I bet that's where all the resources are going right now. Yeah. So this is the Shockwave. It's an advanced metal extractor. It has a little gun on top of it, and that gun fires an EMP bomb, EMP pulse. It fires a little blast of EMP that stuns units at a little AoE. It's an interesting concept. I don't think it's named properly. I feel like Shockwave implies that it would do like a little AoE around itself. That's what I expected the first time that I ever used it. I was quite surprised to see it start shooting at things. But either way, good to know that is what it does. And yeah, maybe you could find a good use for it. I couldn't manage to, but I imagine useful in certain situations. Maybe if you pair them with some static defense on the side, right? A beamer turret or two, just so that they can work down whatever ends up being paralyzed by the EMP turret on top. I'm just spitballing here, though. This is a massive overcommitment right now. T1, oh, well, you know what? Commander does go down, though. It's a nice little commander snipe right there. I don't think the blue team's going to be able to keep control of this territory right here, especially with those T2. They're just going to trade out so much more efficiently. I think eventually this is a lost cause right now, and I think this is probably the right move for the purple player. Move the units back, start to recuperate the losses, try and reclaim whatever you can over here. And for the time being, just use the positional advantage out on the middle of the map. Go for some metal extractors on these 4.3s and get yourself into a nice little T2 lead. Bomber comes across over here. Does manage to snipe some metal, or some wind turbines, rather. I guess they're metal wind turbines. Manages to snipe them nonetheless. Fighters actually decent against ticks. They have a little bit of tracking, so it makes them quite good against ticks. That's a bit of a interesting... Yeah, an interesting... Sorry, I was reading chat. HLM trying to negotiate for an advanced constructor here. The tracking on those makes them very good against ticks, is all I was really trying to say. So nicely done by Kevin to get back into this game. Looks like a uncontested C here on both sides right now, which is a bit funny, right? Like you can imagine a navy of virtually any size right now for Village Idiot would basically overwhelm Avalab. But as it stands, Avalab with a nice little presence on the seas, has a couple of missile ships and is going to start using those to bombard across the way here. I'm guessing this missile ship should... Oh, well, no, there's no geothermal over here. Not sure if Avalab knows that. Maybe he besieged that and already shut it down. But either way, looks like the missile ship is going to go harass one of these players over here, the coastline, perhaps. T2 now overrunning the defenses here. Heavy laser tower. Not going to be enough to shut down these fiends eventually. Those fiends are going to burn right through. They're just too fast for it. We need to see some Sheldon, though. Sheldon are really the great equilibrium. They allow you to besiege any of these static positions a whole lot easier over here. Fighters trying to jump in on this. Okay. Are we looking at going T2 in the fighters anytime soon? We are indeed. So it looks like the T2 lab is out right now for ritual murder. And so just real quick, I want to showcase what's different about the T2 lab. So you probably can already tell on the left-hand side, things are looking really strange for the Cortex T2 lab here. Basically, one of the changes is that all the seaplane ships were added to the catalog of the T2 platform. So the T2 plane yard, the T2 air lab, can now produce all of the seaplane gunships. This was in efforts to standardize across the way that, for instance, vehicles work, where you can produce the amphibious vehicles out of the T1 and T2 labs. I suppose it makes sense. It was sort of an effort to standardize that across the way that the different tech levels and tech tiers in BAR work. So that's a fair change, and it's reasonable. It does mean that you have now quite a diverse array of tools, especially for Cortex. Cortex T2 was very simplistic. If you wanted to break defenses, you built the Dragon. If you wanted to bomb eco, you built a bomber. If you wanted to have fighters, you built a fighter. Armada was a little more sophisticated in the sense that there was a lot more utility to build all over the place, but either way, both teams now going to have the seaplane bombers to negotiate about building, as well as all the regular T2. Now the other thing is the BAT has been changed significantly. The BAT, which used to be the seaplane fighter, has now been removed, or rather has been edited. I don't know, it's been changed into a Star Destroyer. It's got a Banisher missile on the front of it, and it's called an AoE seaplane fighter, so it's very strange. It now produces a missile that fires forward that is, well, it's a Banisher missile that it fires forward, does tremendous AoE damage. Hopefully we get to see a couple this game. They're very slow, very bizarre. It's very strange. So here's one issue that's a little bit pressing, is how do you manage the transition from T1 to T2 if you still want to harass the ground? Because only the T1 fighters can shoot at the ground. As you can see, these T1 fighters firing away at a lot of these, whereas the T2 are incapable of firing at the ground level. How do you manage that? This is one solution. Pardon me, my voice is rather hoarse. This is one solution. Going for multiple players, going for different tech levels. Looks like Ritual Murder is insisting on a tech level transition here. But what you could do is have one player that just ecos the same as the other player, except they go for a whole lot more T1 rather than going into T2. Certainly an option, because then you have T1 and T2. You have that air supremacy, but also you have the ground authority. The other option, of course, is that you just switch into T2 briefly to gain air superiority, and then you switch back to T1. You're just doing one player air here. Now, I don't think one player air is going to be viable for very much longer. It certainly seems like air, with how much emphasis it's going to require, is going to be key here for the future, as long as air rework is enabled anyways. This is a nice little push here. We do have some welders marching forward with a whole bunch of hounds, but there are sharpshooters coming out of the hot pink player's base, marching their way up to the front lines. See just how sturdy those planes are, looping around and basically just ignoring the flak. Sharpshooter's going to be instrumental in stopping this push. For one part, they're going to be great against this Czar over here, but also slowly but surely melting away a whole lot of these units. Looks like that was Kevin's commander, did go down right there to a whole bunch of aggressing units. A whole lot of Archangels pumped out here as well. Yeah, that's the thing. Personal anti-air is going to become so important here in the future, as yeah, you really can't afford to not have anti-air in your composition, otherwise you're just going to get destroyed by T1 fighters. What a bizarre meta we're in for here in the not so distant future. Chainsaw trying its best. Not very effective though, I gotta say. Certainly struggling quite a lot. Tsar in the base over here is causing mayhem. Pounder's trying desperately to clean it up, but that Tsar is just too sturdy. Finally gets popped by a rogue sharpshooter pumped out of the lab over here. Very late on the T2 support, but better late than never. There goes that shockwave. It's firing up into the air, which is quite funny. These bombers are just so sturdy. Well, there they go. Completely obliterating the T2 lab right here for Dr. Frog. Wow, those are some heavy bombers, to say the very least. Chainsaw trying its best, but it just can't do anything about those bombers. I think fighters are going to be a much better option here. T2 fighters trying their very best. Even then, that bomber still managed to get all the way through. Yikes. Hailstorms, very menacing. They're yeah, they're quite the pinnacle as far as anti-air. Well, I guess not anti-air, but just ignoring air. They just do not care how many fighters you throw at them. They just poke and prod as much as you'd like, and they're just kind of shaking and stirring, and they don't care. A little bit of turbulence on our airplane today, as we're going in for a bomb on the eco run. Brought it up before. It's fun to imagine these units just doing their day job. I'm very stoked about it. Just happy to be here. Nice to snipe over here, by the way. Negotiator has been firing away offshore here, poking away at a lot of these units. They did manage to snipe the longbow over here, so that's nice. Shuts down that aggression. Very good. Creative problem solving right there. Very nicely done by Douchey Bag. Nice reclaim right now. That's always good to see. The blue team is backing off here. Looks like they want to build up a forest, but I'm really not sure if that's exactly necessary. I mean, I think the blue team goes right now. Yeah, these sprinters are all primed. Go ahead and skip ahead a little bit here. Sprinters are primed and ready, and it looks like they'll start moving in. Fiends are out of position up north here. They were not paying attention to the movements of the enemy here. There's the shockwave firing away. See the little AoE stun, yeah, EMP thing that it does. It's interesting. It's an interesting concept. I think I definitely would pair it with some static defense. I think, oh, there's a beamer turret over here, but it's a little bit blocked right now. Other than that, though, yeah, I think literally a beamer turret just right next to the shockwave would be phenomenal as far as dealing a whole bunch of damage to units that get caught by the shockwave there. It looks like it's been tuned up slightly. The last time I saw it, it was very bad at paralyzing. Like its EMP bolts it just wouldn't do anything. It didn't seem to paralyze anything, hardly at all. Seems like it's been amped up a little bit, so that's really good to see. If you're gonna have an EMP turret that costs, what is it, 1,700? 1,500 metal, I feel like it should EMP pretty quick. Longbow does pop the geothermal over here, by the way. Saw the explosion out of the corner of my eye. That's going to be a significant chunk of the eco here for dying solar system going down. Inconvenient timing to lose all that power as, yeah, the T2 advanced fusion reactor is coming up and online, and now there's no energy left to build it. No metal in the bank either. Czars get shut down here by sharpshooters. Sharpshooters just doing their job. Basically exactly what they needed. Capital ship is out, though, for Avalab. He is going to move it into position. Oh, well, maybe not. We need to see this capital ship do some tremendous damage. It can certainly fire into this massive wind turbine farm over here for both Douchey Bag and for Village Idiot. Both of them with tremendous ecos that can be popped very easily by this capital ship over here. Shield bubbles have come up for the units on the front line right now, so I'm not sure how much value that capital ship is going to really be able to do raining around over there. Wait a second. Yep, okay, so this is the Armada variant. This is the AOE seaplane fighter for Armada. It's called the Cyclone. Heavy AOE seaplane fighter. Now, in the test that I did in the big news video, this thing was garbage. This right here was really, really bad. For whatever reason, it wasted all of its shots. Like, it had a really terrible overkill problem where it would just fire all of its shots immediately into the first thing it saw, except that it was all of them would do that. So it was like 100 shots would go into one fighter, and they couldn't do anything for the next minute. It felt like it was very, very bad. So there's definitely going to be some micro shenanigans to these. You're going to have to learn how to move them in and out in such a spaced out configuration that they don't overkill a single target a whole bunch. I guess going to be really good against things like dragons, for instance. Those really high health units. Nuclear bombers, they're going to be decent against too. But yeah, it feels like you don't really want these in a straight up dogfight. Now, that might be good against big clumps of units as a AoE unit, but it's really hard to tell whether that's going to be effective or not. Capital ship here, by the way, just not really interested in anything at all. I feel like if you're going to go for a capital ship, you might as well have a plan for what eco to go for, right? It feels about right to me. Oh, these bombers definitely feel much chunkier. Chunk, 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 chunk. Feels like they're actually deploying a sinister warhead to the battlefield, not just a little light peewee. That's nice. That's actually a nice change, I would say. Thematic, cinematic, at the very least. I think bombers have their place here. I think gunships are definitely the one that I'm starting to focus on, is needing a little bit of work here. The change that I'm aware of to all gunships was to basically make them slower, but also much healthier. So they're much more durable. Not sure how much that's going to have an effect, though, as everyone and their mother is going to have so much more AoE and also so much more just anti-air in general. Not sure if it's really going to be worth anything to have, I think it was 50% more HP, when everyone's going to have 2 times the air units. Right? You see the math that's not adding up in my head. It feels like we're headed towards a balance where gunships are not going to be hardly effective at all, from a place where gunships were basically never made in the first place. So I would really love to see, since we're spreading the love around the aerial face here, the aerial fronts, I would love to see some gunships get a little touch up there. Maybe making them severely resistant to ground-based anti-air. Severely resistant to ground-based anti-air, and then keep their relative fragility against planes. It's aerial anti-air. I feel like that's one fair balancing step, right? The blue team now at a significant advantage, but failing to press it. I'm only pointing it out here in the interest of time, so I'm going to skip ahead. Switch it into 2x mode here as we watch and see what the blue team is going to do with this advantage. For the time being, though, mostly investing in air, and I can't blame them. I mean, if I was in this position, I would probably be playing with the new air as well. Looks like Douchebag has decided to go into a little bit of T1 air shenanigans as well. I think that's quite cool. I think this is probably going to become a mid-game transition, right? You go for a whole bunch of anti-air, and then you just build a whole bunch of T1 air, and then you have this weird assault force where you can find any openings and try and harass through them. Yeah, I think there's definitely some room for that. A whole bunch of Cyclones being harassed out of the skies right now. I'm still unconvinced about what the Cyclone's use case is here. T2 going up against T1 and T2 composition. Yeah, those T2 fighters doing phenomenally here. When I put it on 2x speed, they almost look like they move at normal speed. Almost. But here we go, and I mean, the T2 fighters still... I mean, this is the role that they were described as supposed to have, is they're an air supremacy fighter, so they're meant to completely demolish anything that flies in the sky, and I think they do a great job at that. So at the very least, I would say that that's probably been accomplished, that a goal has been reached. My question is where the AoE fighters fit into this composition here. Do you use them against the T2 fighters? Do you use them against big clumped up groups of T1 fighters? Hard to say really where you're meant to put those bombers down. Or rather put those fighters down. Bit of a dud on the fusion reactor over here. Bombing attempt gone south. We're now up to 2 capital ships over here. Okay. Very nice. Is there a commander under there? There is a commander over there. Okay. Nano 282NY. Going to be hanging out underneath those capital ships. All right. Lunkhead's also looking to get sturdy over here on this northern side of the Sea Strait. The red team. Not nearly enough Lunkheads rather to counter the capital ship over there, I'm afraid. So those Lunkheads are mostly just heading to their doom. What a weird battle. You have to be so cognizant of the enemy's air forces at all times. Looks like Sergeant Johnson is ready to end this game, though. He's starting to finally build some Marauder and send them on across the map here. Hopefully these start to move over onto this western side. I think if we see the Marauder march on over through the seas, I don't think this really holds. This is mostly just T1. Looks like there's some lightning turrets mixed in here. 7 lightning turrets. Decent, but not nearly enough. Nuke is launched. Oh, interesting. Okay. I guess Dying Solar System, a little bit afraid of all these radar blips out on his coastline, and decides that there's a single solution to that problem. And it's thermonuclear. Up it goes and down it comes. Pop goes the Weasel, and down go a whole bunch of those T1 ships. Armada Epochs, very resilient to nuclear harassment, however, so not going to cut it this time. Wow. Sonny Lopez going up to 4 Epochs at this point. This Epoch has 25 kills to its name. Boy, I feel like that's a bit of a wasted potential right there. Feels like that Epoch has not gotten very much value out today. Nice, we do have the drone carrier coming out here. One of those new T2 ships. Carries a whole fleet of little drones when it's not destroyed. Capital ship in a whole lot of trouble, though. Seaplane bombers. Or I guess these are not seaplane bombers. These are just torpedo bombers. Very powerful. Basically the direct counter to the capital ship here. Down it goes. Just a couple of bombing runs. Yeah, and it looks like Adenot is looking to spread the love here and try and take out some of these anti-air defenses. Pointing out the construction fabrication station over here that we're getting ready to enjoy. Repair going to save that. Very nicely done. 2 capital ships. 6 capital ships. Capital ships all over the place. Is this nuke in a good spot? Oh, it very well might be. I didn't see an anti-nuke go up. Uh-oh. Nuke is in the air. Headed across. Uh-oh. Oh, it's right here in the middle. Oh, that is just beautiful. Boom goes the entire center of the map right there. That was a beautiful nuke. Wiping out the entire force of the blue team right there. Very nicely done. That is going to stall things out here for the red team. Now, this is a bummer. We do have a whole lot of Marauder headed on over here. Oh, Marauder. They're straying here. It's like Plinko. Kind of like dodging in and out. What side will they turn to? No one can say. Commander is in position here. We need some killer D-guns. There's 2. And there's 4. There's 5. Okay. Yeah, not bad. Manages to shut down at least half of those Marauder, and there's plenty of Fiends coming out of the Maroon base right now in order to mop up the rest of them. Nicely done. That's a very concise hold right there. Going to, at the very least, allow Dying Solar System to live on for a little while longer here. Although the barrage from those capital ships is starting to get absurd. Ciao, Commander. Plasma deflection is no joke. Those plasma balls have been known to travel worldwide as they get deflected around all over the place. Serious bombing run getting ready to head out on the left side. Fighters heading on over to accompany that. Couple of submerged sabers hiding out under the water over here. I wonder if they can see those actually. They can. Not sure exactly what's giving the vision of that. One of those has vision anyways. That's quite funny though, to be able to see those, but there's no way to shoot at them. I guess a torpedo launcher or a depth charge launcher would work. Feels odd, but I suppose it would work. When's the last time you've seen a torpedo launcher kill a gunship? Feels a little out of place. Starting up a whole lot of pulsars over here. There are tons of shields keeping this safe right now. We're up to 4, 5, 6 shields. A couple more coming up on the back of it as well. And, you know, normally it'd feel like it'd be overkill, but I guess it's not here. When you're dealing with this many capital ships, what an absurd expenditure of metal right now. 136,000 metal in capital ships. Pulsars firing away here. There's 4 pulsars. Oh, it won't matter though, as the advanced fusion reactors pop to a bunch of bombers. T2 heavy Cortex bombers do blow up the economy here for Dying Solar System. And the Hot Beam player is viciously torn from the game here. That is pretty brutal. We have some of those dragons over here on the right-hand side. Saw somebody say something about dragons in chat. The dragons have received a bit of an update. It's not part of the air rework. It's part of the release candidate units. I believe it's the release candidate units, which I guess is the more serious of the two. Oh, there we go. Dragons have been handed over. That's quite nice. Yeah, so the dragons now shoot a gout of flame out of the front of their schnozzle. They also fire 4 heavy lasers out of their sides, sort of out of their rib cage. They fire 4 lasers, kind of like udders. I'm not gonna lie. Oh, big nuke over here takes out the economy for Avalon. That's quite a nice counterattack. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to everybody whose day I just ruined by pointing out that these look like udders, but yeah, the dragon firing its big green milk and a spicy flamethrower as well, just in case. I'm sorry, things are getting off the rails here. Oh man, those do some good work though. Those are bulls too. Those are the heavy armada tank, and those, I mean, they have some serious armor blading. These dragons are just burning right through them. Talk about a thematic improvement, right? The dragon, which you know, is named after the mythological lizard of yore, now finally shoots fire, just like it should. Yeah, that's pretty nice. I'm a fan of that one. I was skeptical when I first saw the mod that I think inspired it. I don't know if we ever got official confirmation. But the mod that was made that had basically these exact changes. Yeah, I was skeptical of that one, but it does seem like the dragon has reached a nice, powerful but stable state here. Oh yeah, it also has a little anti-air on it. I forgot about that. Light little SAM turret thing, fires little anti-air missiles out the back. Makes them slightly resistant to lone anti-air, right, lone fighter attacks, but also you get enough of them grouped up together, and they can be a substantial force to deal with. Makes them very tricky to counter. I'll put it this way, I die to dragons a lot. Oh. Loads of anti-air over here now. I'm gonna shoot down a whole bunch of these T1 fighters. Yeah. T1 fighter's gonna be dealt with over here. Nicely done. Capital ship has been reallocated to barrage this side over here. There's a bunch of landmines just hanging out. Capital ship being given orders to fire all over the place, but there's a ton of shields over there. Not sure how effective that's going to be. Meanwhile, units have clashed, and it looks like the dragons are not marching forward, hovering forward slowly but menacingly. They're gonna start burning everything to the ground. Light pink commander does go up in smoke here, and that's gonna take out another major eco center here for the red team. At this point, things are starting to look pretty hopeless. Yeah. I mean, those dragons are definitely weak against enough T2 air. You start shooting them down one by one, and they're gonna collapse here. Chainsaw doing its best, but I don't think gonna be quite enough. Fighters having a field day though, tearing apart a lot of these dragons here. Dragons will be dealt with. Very expensive loss, those dragons, but they certainly got their work done. They cleared out the middle of the map here. Big nuke coming across. Oh, big nuke coming across. Massive connection right there. Does manage to pop right in the base of Nolius, taking out basically the last massive bastion of economy here for the red team, leaving only GTM's main command center here in the back line. That's only, what are we looking at here? A whopping 9 advanced fusion reactors. And the story is all told in the top right here. We can see the blue team pulling in almost 4 times the economy of the red. And I think it's only a matter of time before we see a substantial, oh, getting a little chuggy here, a substantial collapse on behalf of the red team. Big old grunt spam coming across here. It doesn't look like they're split very well. Oh, they're being manually controlled. Okay. Holy. Talk about capital ships. Wow. I mean, I guess if you got the metal and you need some way to spend it, 19 capital ships for a whopping 323,000 metal. That's, I mean, that's a brutal way to win your side of the map. But there's not really much they can do to contest that. You need about 50 nukes in order to blow those out of the ocean. Easier said than done. I'd be impressed if the yellow player was able to claw themselves back into this game here, but I just don't see what on earth they could do that would be powerful enough to even the odds here. We need about, well, we need 3/4 of the team for the blue to go down in order for that to be possible. And it looks like the yellow commander has recognized that as well. Gonna be GG here as the blue team manages to snatch victory in this very bizarre first look, well, at least first look at a real game for me of the new air rework units. Stumbling over these new words, these new ideas. As always, let me know what you think about it down below in the comment section. I'm always happy to hear your guys' thoughts and theories. There was a whole discussion that it was too long to even get into here about whether or not the air rework was a good idea on the last video. So I'm excited to see what new ideas have arisen here. Other than that though, I hope you enjoyed today's cast, and I will see you in the very next Beyond Our Reason video. Peace out, folks.